Perfect.
All right, everybody, what is going on? And welcome to today's edition of SWAC Talk. Of course, this is the show. We cover the SWAC inside and out, and I'm your tour guide around the SWAC, C. Wells, coming at you. And it's time to talk about the West Division, man. We did the East Division the other day. Today, we're going to do my thoughts and questions on the West Division, man. The West side is the best side in trying to figure out who the heck is going to win this thing, and the best side in who gonna be the least flawed team. But man, the West, we're gonna do our best to hold it down. So before we get started with that, man, y'all can check out the socials. They are on the screen down below. Facebook is SWAC Talk, Instagram SWAC Talk, Twitter SWAC Talk 76. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We're making our way up to 800, so don't miss out on that. If you've already subscribed, man, we definitely thank you. If you haven't, man, why don't you go ahead and hit that button, and then hit that like button while you're here, man. It don't cost nothing. Just go ahead and hit that button, like the video. Feel free to share them if you want, and comment all your thoughts on this upcoming season, man. Spring is going on. We got 2 spring games coming on Saturday, Southern and Alcorn, so don't miss out on that. Everybody else is coming on later in the month. So April is spring football, spring game season, so don't miss out on any of them. I will be at Southern on Saturday, so don't. I'm a try to do my thing while I'm up there, and y'all don't miss out. So without any further ado, man, we're gonna go ahead and jump on into this. Like I said before in my East Division video, this is more like my thoughts and questions. These aren't like official things. These aren't like make or break things. These aren't things that if they happen, this team gonna win a championship. If they don't, they're not. These are more, like I said before, like back in the day, if you remember back in the day, Arsenio Hall had those things that make you go, but these are the things that make me go, about each team. So just going to, kind of, most of them are probably going to be common sense. I mean, it's not a lot of intricate questions that need to be answered by any team, but, these are the things that's on my mind as we make our way through the spring into the summer and then the fall. So let's go ahead and start, man. We'll start off with the big bad Braves of Alcorn, man. Alcorn is a team that, we know last season they finished 5-6. They were 4-4 in conference. Not a typical Alcorn season. They did have they did start the season off, in SWAC play pretty strongly. They kind of had a lull in the middle. And that kind of cost them their opportunity at a division championship. Some injuries kind of wore them down, but they had a 3-game losing streak in the middle of the season that really kind of took them out of the race. And they finished winning 2 out of 3. And so they, this team, they lost a couple games over the season. They won 3 in a row. They lost 3 in a row. They won 2 out of 3 to close. So this was a very streaky team. So for me, the main question is, and if you paid attention to Alcorn last season, their offense was predicated by the run game. This was a team that ran the ball extremely well. They was 4th in the league in rushing offense. They had the league's leading rusher, so they ran the ball very well, over 175 yards per game. Like I said, they have a back coming back, Jarvion Howard, who ran the ball for 1,275 yards and 12 touchdowns. So, this is a guy that averaged 115 yards by himself. The run game was there. The problem with Alcorn last season was when Aaron Allen got hurt at quarterback, their pass game really fell off. They ended up finishing 8th in the league in passing offense. So that's the biggest question. Obviously they brought in Tyler Macon, who's a Missouri transfer. A lot of people very high on him. Can he get the passing game going? Is the offense going to be able to move the ball through the air to complement their run game? And that's, to me, the biggest thing on offense is, can that pass game match the run game? They don't necessarily have to throw the ball for 250, 300 yards, but just more consistency through the air. And being a threat to throw the ball. Last season, they had 10 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, so those numbers aren't great. Just getting the passing game up to par with the run game, and your offense a jump a few places in the conference, and that will help you get more wins. When teams know what you want to do, they can, even with a back as good as Howard, who still ran for over 1,200 yards, almost 13. When you know that that's what they want to do, you can at least try to stop it, and they couldn't hurt teams for trying to stop the run game. So to me, the passing game is the biggest issue. Can that step up and match what the run game does? On the defensive side of the ball, this defense was was a very solid defense. They were 4th in the league in total defense. They were 4th in rushing defense. They were 6th in passing defense, and they were 3rd in sacks. This team had 39 sacks, so they really did a really good job of getting pressure on the quarterback, and they did it. Really all the teams that finished in the top part of the conference had multiple guys that can rush the passer. And that was one of the things that Alcorn did very well last season. So their biggest thing is they are losing two huge pieces on their defense, Charles and Kinsler, at linebacker and safety. Can they fill those holes? I mean, obviously some guys are going to have to step up, and it may not be those may not be things that one guy can plug that hole, but you need to fill those holes. You need to get the defense short up, because the defense took a big step last season. It was kind of, the 2021 Alcorn defense wasn't, to me, what Alcorn defense is. So they kind of took that step in that direction again. And can they continue to do that? That's going to be one of the things that I'm looking forward to seeing from Alcorn. And basically, the only other thing I got for Alcorn is to maintain that championship presence. The last couple of years, Alcorn hasn't really been in the race. They kind of been in it, kind of been out of it, but they haven't really been that key factor in the division as they had been in previous years. When they had that stranglehold on the East, they were 5-3 in 2021, but they lost a lot of key games that at the end of the season that cost them a championship. So can they keep themselves in that mix? Because I'm one of those people who feel like Alcorn is always going to be in the mix. Can they maintain that? That's a tough thing to do, to be year in and year out, to be a contender for your division. They have to continue to be in that mix. The West is up for grabs. If you can get a foothold, you can find yourself in a good spot to win it. And, with a coach like Coach McNair that knows how to win and has won at Alcorn, you never count them out. So for me, the main thing is, can they maintain that their championship presence and keep that edge and keep themselves in the mix all season? Because I fully expect them to do that. But that's kind of where I stand with them. That leads us to the next team, who is probably an even bigger enigma. And that's Grambling. Grambling is a team last season, they started off with FBS loss, but then they beaten off Western State pretty soundly, but they had a pattern in most games where they were really good in the first half and poor in the second half. And that was a factor in a lot of their games. They played competitive football most of the time. But in the second half, they either wore down or they went away from things that were working, and they ultimately would fall behind and lose. And they were in a tight game with Jackson State at the half, and ended up losing 66-24. That's one of those games where they, I'm not saying they would have won that game, but they were down 21-17 at the half and got outscored 45-7 in the second half. So this, that was a game where they had a bad second half, good first half. Bethune-Cookman was another game like that. Southern, second half of the Bayou Classic was not as good for Grambling as the first half. This team was able to put together a couple solid games in the middle of the season. They lost to FAMU on a controversial penalty. They beat Alcorn really soundly, and then they beat Pine Bluff with a good second half to make up for a slow first half. But other than that, they weren't in a lot of games, and a lot of their problem is I don't think Grambling really knew what Grambling was offensively. They were a team to me who was a very strong running team. They had a lot of guys capable of running the football, and they finished 5th in the league in rushing. So to me, that should have been your bread and butter. You should have, you run the ball until the team takes it away from you. They don't take it away from you, then you don't stop running. You make them take it from you. The pass game was the biggest issue. They were 11th in passing offense. They had 143 yards per game and 11 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. So that ultimately leads me to my first question is quarterback. It's good. Miles Crawley transferred in from Alabama State. A lot of people feel like he's gonna take the job. You got Calvez and a bunch of other guys who would somebody has to take the reins at that position, and that leads to consistency. This was a team that could not drive the ball. They really could not drive the ball down the field. They were 11th in third down conversions at 29.5%. They just if they didn't hit a big play, then they didn't move the football. So they have to be able to drive the ball down the field on a consistent basis. You're losing Maurice Washington, who was your leading rusher, but you return a guy like Floyd Chalk, who probably should have got a lot more carries during the season. You got Chance Williams coming back, and they brought in a lot of talent. This team, they're talking a good game on talent, but they have to translate that over to the actual games. So can this offense find a way to move the football consistently? It is gonna make or break this team, and that's why you saw good first half, bad second half. This team just was feast or famine, and the defense has to bounce back. In 2021, Grambling had one of the more underrated defenses. A lot of people didn't realize that defense was as good as it was in 2021. They weren't great, but they were very solid compared to how bad the offense was that year. The defense took a step back last season, giving up 44% on third downs. They allowed opponents to run the ball for 180 yards a game, which was 9th in the league. Opponents threw the ball for 203 yards on them, and the defense gave up 31 points a game, and the offense scored 23. So this defense was really solid the season before, and they took a step back. They do still have a lot of talent coming back. So can this team put some things together? Can the coaching staff get this team on the same page and avoid those distractions in the middle of the season, like taking the G off the helmet? I don't think that was, to me, that's something that you do in the preseason. Allow your guys to earn that. When you do that in the middle of the season, you really put more focus on your struggles than had needed to be. And that became not necessarily in the locker room, but outside. That became something that people just, was able to meme the hell out of. And it kind of, it's one of those things that makes things tougher for you from a fan perspective, because you're really eager to see things go right. It's kind of like when you go to a basketball game, your team stands up, your fans stand up to your team score their first points. Sometimes it's like they're never gonna score because like you just anticipating every shot to go in so you can sit your ass down. But that's kind of what it is. You were hoping that this, if you're a Grambling fan, you were hoping that this would be the week that the team played well enough to get that G back because you got tired of people making jokes about losing more letters and all of that stuff. So not having those distractions this season and kind of, righting the ship and getting back to playing Grambling football is going to be key for Grambling. They have to, the coaching staff has to earn their keep, and this is how they have to do it. Moving on to the Panthers of Prairie View, this team returns a lot of guys. This is a team that didn't lose a lot from last season, and they were in the mix again. They won the division in 2021. This past season, they were in the hunt for the championship, and ultimately got beat by Valley at the end, and that kind of cost them. That did cost them a championship because all they needed to do was beat Valley, and they went back to the SWAC championship where they lost that game in disappointing fashion and found themselves sitting at home. So this team is a very, very solid team, man. They ran the ball extremely well. They were a team who really were able to find a lot of success on the ground to the tune of over 230 yards per game on the ground. They averaged 5.2 yards per carry. Both of those numbers led the conference. They ran the ball for 28 touchdowns. That number led the conference. They ran the ball extremely well. The passing game was not as good. And whether that was by design, whether that was by design, or whether that was just inefficiency at quarterback at times, it just didn't really click for them offensively through the air. This team finished 10th in passing, 144 yards per game. They threw 12 touchdowns, only 7 interceptions, but they still just did not have that get up and go in them in the pass game. So that's your first question, is just similar to Alcorn, can your pass game help your running game? Because your running game, you lost Jaden Stewart at running back, but you got Caleb Johnson at running back. So you lost a really good back, and you probably upgraded to a better back. So your running game is going to be there. You got, a lot of guys who can carry the ball. Antoine Wisham, Conley can run the ball. That's there. Yeah, your passing game is going to have to step up because I think in some games that did hurt you. Being able to throw the ball consistently, it helps you. I mean, it only helps you. If you look at the 3 of the teams in this division, well, really 4 of the teams in the division. I'm not counting Pine Bluff because they struggled mightily at everything. If you look at Southern, Alcorn, Grambling, Prairie View, those teams, none of those teams had a explosive passing game. None of them had a really consistent passing game. They all ran the ball extremely well, but they could not throw the ball consistently. And that's, that was all those teams' major flaws. Prairie View has to be able to pass the ball well. They don't have to be great at it. They don't, like Alcorn, they don't have to throw for 250, 300 yards, but they just have to be able to have that as a threat. A lot of times you run the ball, the deep ball will be there. Play action pass is always going to be there when you run the ball well. So just being able to take that step offensively with the pass game is definitely going to help. The defense was very good last season. They was second in passing defense. They were not as good against the run last season. They were 8th against the run. And they were 6th in total defense and 7th in scoring defense, as well as 5th in sacks. So the defense still has a lot of great pieces. They did lose some pieces, but can they continue to grow and get better? Because they would hit or miss. Sometimes they would really be stout, and then sometimes they would give up a big play here and there, and put yourself in a bad position. So can they keep themselves in the mix all game long and get some stops on third downs? Would definitely help them go a long way with that. that leads to my final question: is what's missing? I don't, it's like something is. I don't know what it is, but something is not there for Prairie View that makes me feel like this is the team, because they returned a lot of guys last season. They returned a lot of guys, and I don't know what it is to put my fingers on it to say that, okay, this is exactly what they're missing. This is what they need. This is the huge thing, because, like I said, the passing game is a I don't want to say it's a problem, but the passing game is something that can be fixed. It's not necessarily something that's gonna kill you, because you can still survive. With a mediocre pass game, especially in the conference you can run the ball well. That helps you a lot. So it's not necessarily that. I don't really know what it is. So something for Prairie View has to click and give them that championship caliber team, that's gonna take hold of the division that's up for grabs. So the coaching staff is solid. That's not a problem. Coach McDowell is doing a really good job there. That's not a problem. Schemes are not even a problem. It's just they have to. Well, I mean, to me, that season last year was clouded by that Valley loss. That loss just magnifies everything and makes everything look a lot worse, because you had it in your grasp and you lost it. So avoiding those kind of issues and finishing the deal can get you in a good spot. So find out what's missing and correct it. And that takes us to Southern. And boy, you're talking about a team who fell into the championship, man. It's been well documented that this team was basically out of it, heading into the second to last weekend of the season. Like I said, all Prairie View had to do was win, and they were in. All Texas Southern had to do was win, and then they were in, and they both lost. And then Southern, by virtue of winning the Bayou Classic, made it to the SWAC championship game and lost to Jackson State again. This team was the definition of an inconsistent team, man. This team could put 35 or 40 on you, or they could not score. It's like literally they got shut out twice. This is a team that, in their losses, they scored 17, 0, 0, 16, and 24. So they, if they did not score, they were not going to win. That just, obviously that goes without saying. If you can't score, you can't win. But if they didn't, they just struggled offensively in their losses. And the pass game was a big issue with that, especially as the season wound down. The offense got real stagnant passing the ball. The numbers dropped in passing offense. They finished fifth in passing offense, which is a surprise to me. Almost 200 yards a game. They had 19 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. But there was a stretch where the offense just was not clicking through the air. Run game was still solid, 200 yards per game, 5 yards per carry, 25 touchdowns. Total offense, they were second in the league in total offense. Actually led the league in yards per play at 6.2 yards per play. So, and a lot of that you can say a lot of that is weighted by a couple of those cupcakes they played, but they put up 45 points on Prairie View. That was a on the road, and that's a solid defense, and that was a road game. But like I said, they got bombed twice away from home. Did not lose a home game. Every game they lost was away from Baton Rouge. So they have to find a way to fix that. And just like everybody, just like a lot of teams in the division, quarterback is the thing. Going into the spring, Southern has 4 guys battling it out. They want to come out of the spring with a guy, because I feel like it's necessary to have somebody, even if that guy doesn't start game one, you need somebody coming out of the spring that sets the pace, because you need to have some kind of direction on where you're going into the fall. Now, if a guy comes out of spring and gets beat by somebody in the fall because that guy worked his ass off in the summer and just took a big step in the fall, then you got a guy who just took charge. I don't want to see a situation where we're 3 or 4 weeks into the season and Southern still is trying to figure out who that guy is. So coming out of spring with a guy and hopefully that guy takes charge all the way through the start of the season, that's vital to Southern because the run game is going to be the having all the quarterbacks on the roster are capable runners. Maybe not to the extent that McCray was, because I mean the guy was a great runner, but he just did not put it all together. So being able to run your zone reads and your RPOs, definitely gonna get this offense moving quickly like they want to. The only other big issue Southern has is on both lines. Southern is gonna have 4 new offensive linemen. Now they do have a lot of guys that played last season, but you're looking to replace all SWAC guys is always a big thing. So finding that right lineup of guys, getting the depth that you need, because you're gonna need guys to fill in. Even if guys get nicked up during a game or they miss significant time, you need that depth on the line. Defensively, the middle of the defense took a big hit. You losing Dumas and Peterson. So finding those defensive tackles to fill the middle of that line is only going to help your defense. Southern was second in the league in sacks. So they, Jordan Lewis was banged up last season. So they were able to get guys like Kelby Givens and Trey Lang. Were able to be guys who got pressure on the quarterback. So you want to continue to do that. Get your pass rush. Your linebacker play was a lot better coming out of the season than I thought it would be going into the season. So that's definitely a key for you. Your linebackers can play better when your defensive line is strong. And the secondary, they were up and down at times, but they were solid. You're going to have to replace a guy like Corian Harris, who was an All-American. So that's a big hole to fill in the secondary. And then other than that, just, like I said, the run game was great, but they didn't necessarily have a guy who you can count on to get those yards for you. Sims was probably that guy. He got hurt. Ligon, who was a freshman, can take another step. They brought in C.J. Russell from Grambling. There's a lot of guys who can carry the ball. There's a lot of guys at receiver who can make plays for you. So the offense has the weapons. Quarterback has to steer the car and keep Southern on the move. And just being able to win games, man, and score points is going to be the thing, because Southern defense was a very good defense. Even when you look at the numbers and you look at some of the points they gave up, they still were able to lead the league in rushing defense. So this team can still be a team that challenges for the division, but it's gonna be crucial that they find some consistency, because that's what's gonna hold them back. And next is the Tigers of Texas Southern. I wore my Texas Southern shirt today. This team is probably going to be one of those teams coming into the season that everybody's going to have either 1 or 2 in the division. I feel like a lot of people are gonna have TSU winning the SWAC West and playing for the championship. And I don't have a problem with that. This team is a team that has like 58 guys who are like juniors. So this team has built themselves up. They've gone through the growing pains. Last year, they took a really good step, especially defensively. Their defense was a lot better last season than anybody could have thought they would be. Now, they still weren't great. They were 9th in total defense, but they still played better than a lot of people thought. They had 16 interceptions, which led the league. So they played a lot better. The offense took a step back, not a huge step back, but they took a step back, especially in the passing game. That has to improve. A lot of that was, you didn't necessarily have any guys at receiver who could just hurt you. So somebody has to step up. and make that happen for you in the receiver core, because your running game is going to be your defense is getting better, but your defense does have some holes to fill. That's one of the things. And depth. One of the key issue for Texas Southern was an injury to Andrew Body at the end of the Alabama, or toward the end of the Alabama A&M game, and not having a guy that come in and even just pick up a first down or two. An offense just fell apart. So being able to have somebody behind him, you don't ever want your quarterback to get hurt, but knowing that you got guys behind your starters who can make plays and help your team win is what separates a championship team from an average team. So if you really want to be that championship team, your depth has to be great. And, we can, right now everybody can say, we got this, we got that, but quality depth is much better than numbers depth. So having that quality depth is what's going to make this a championship team, because you just never know what's going to happen through the course of a season. Somebody get banged up, you lose a guy for something or whatever. So having people to fill in is where it's at. And that leads to my biggest thought is, can this team handle those expectations? It's easy to say that now, and going into the season, you're going to be one of the teams who a lot of people are probably going to have, as a contender. And, with, a new JSU team basically in the East, a lot of people may feel like this is the year that somebody in the West can win it. And Texas Southern going to be one of those names that's thrown around. Like I said, you're growing incrementally. Can you take that next step, which is be a contender? And to be a contender, you have to be able to handle those week in and week out expectations. Win a big game. Can you come back the next week and win again? Can you just continue to grow and set yourself up to be in the mix at the end and win it this time? So, there are a lot of teams that get to that door and don't get in the door. So can they kick that door in and take that next step that will put them in a position that they haven't been in a long, long time? So that's the biggest thought, question, whatever you want to say, is can they finish the job? Can they handle the expectations? Can they, grow and develop as a championship contending team? That's the key to me. And that leads us to Pine Bluff. This team is starting over. They lost Kayvon Britton, who was the second leading rusher in the conference. He led the league in touchdowns. For a team who was not good last season, they had one hell of a guy to run that football. Even with him, they finished 10th in the league in rushing offense. So they did not have much behind him. The passing game, was erratic. Skylar Perry battled injuries all season. They had a couple freshmen come in who who played like freshmen. They made mistakes. The offensive line, which had an all-conference guy, NFL guy on the line. The rest of the line was not that great. They gave up 27 sacks. They did not protect the quarterback well. The defense only had 21 sacks. This was a defense had a lot of injuries. They couldn't stop the run. They were last in run defense. They were almost last in pass defense. So this team is starting all over. New coach. He's a question mark. Not because I don't know if he can, if he's a good coach or not. I just don't know what he's going to be able to do. So that's a big question mark right there, is what Coach Hampton can do. How is he going to he still has to bring in some more guys, because this team is going to need numbers, and they don't have that right now. So can he fill the holes that they have? Can he bring in some talent? Can the offense, without your best playmaker, can they have a pulse? Can your defense get the stops? Because you really did not, like I said, you really did not play well for the bulk of the season. Every game you played until the last game against Alabama State. So can you get better? Can you play better? Can you be competitive? You may not win a lot of games, but can you be competitive? That's a huge, huge point to me. Can you just play with people? Are you gonna give up? Are you gonna lay down and die? are you going to fight back? And that's where I think Pine Bluff is right now. To me, if they can be competitive, that goes a long way in making this team be, that goes a long way in where this team stands, because to me, it's not about this season. Again, kind of like Bethune-Cookman, I think this is a year zero type of thing. So you just have to be able to find a way to help to fight, man. Hopefully, as coaches, you can get your guys to rally behind each other and make some things happen, because you have a lot of home games against teams who are top teams in your conference. So you got the opponents at home that you want. Most teams play better at home than they do on the road. And like I said, this was a team that won their first 2 games last season, and then they lost 9 games in a row before they won their last game. And they only had 1 game. Two of their 9 losses was by single digits. So you got blowed out. You gave up 38 to Alcorn, 59 to Southern. You gave up 27 to FAMU and a 27-6 loss. You gave up 36 to Grambling. Prairie View put 55 on you. So you gave up a ton of points in a lot of games. And you have to find a way to fix that. You have to find a way to be competitive, and you have to find a way to keep yourself in games. So their questions is simple, man. Can they just make improvements, on all phases of the game? Can they get better offensively? Can they get better defensively? Can the coaches coach these guys up? And can they compete? Because sometimes when you're not expected to do a lot, you're either going to get down or lay down. So hopefully they get down and make themselves at least a tough out for teams. So that's going to do it for our West Division questions and thoughts. We'll be back on Wednesday. We'll keep moving through spring practice, getting ready for these spring games. We got Swag Smoke on Thursday, live 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. And then Sunday, we'll talk a little bit of Southern Spring game and whatever else is coming down the pipe. So that's going to do it, man. I'm up out of here. Y'all enjoy y'all Sunday, and we'll catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.